Great. Welcome, everyone. This is our first Rebound JMU Alumni Podcast. I am pleased to be joined today by Allahjah Smith and Molly Pirrung, two recent graduates, May of 2020. We're going to talk to them today about their sort of life after Madison experiences. Hoping to hear the good stuff, the tough stuff. They both are experiencing JMU still, but in a different way as engagement fellows. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But this will be an ongoing series throughout the semester. These are meant to be less than 30 minutes. So hopefully you will get on, join us, stay with us, and learn from these folks. This is focused a lot for our graduating students, so you can see what life is really like after JMU. So with that, let's jump right in and start with just some quick introductions. So Allahjah, I'm going to start with you. Can you share what you want the people to know about you since they can't see you?
Absolutely. My name is Allahjah Smith. I was a Justice Studies major with a minor in philosophy. Also on the pre-law track, I was a member of Phi Alpha Delta, and I am now at JMU as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Engagement Fellow.
Great. Welcome. Molly?
Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Pirrung. I am also a fellow Justice Studies major. Allahjah and I talk all the time about being a Justice Studies major. So if you're listening and you're a Justice Studies major, just know that we're already obsessed with you. I was a nonprofit minor. I am the engagement fellow in student affairs. And yeah, it's a great time. It's a fun time.
So I'm going to jump right into questions that neither of you know I'm asking. So we're going to get the real honest reaction here. So let's just start with the biggest one, I think, which is what is different since you graduated from what you thought? Like everyone graduates and they have this image. What is different? And then the second part is what's the same or what met your expectations or however you hear that. Either one of you can go.
I think I can. Oh, go ahead, Allahjah. Go ahead.
No, you got it, Molly.
Okay. What I think I kind of heard and predicted was how much effort it takes to stay in touch with people from undergrad. People really talk about how once you're not within 3 feet of your friends, then it takes a lot more effort to reach out to them and stay connected with them. And I think that's something I expected, but I also didn't expect it to be this hard. I think also in such a virtual world, it's hard to meet up with people and it's hard to stay connected since there aren't many social in-person interactions. So I think the struggle of staying up to date and in contact with people that aren't immediately in your town, even the people that are in your town because of COVID, I think that's something.
Okay, Allahjah?
Definitely second that, Molly. It's definitely really hard, especially for the two of us being still in Harrisonburg, but like not actually JMU students anymore. It's just a weird role to be in. But I would say something that's like it was really hard for me at the very beginning being alum, not having your entire day filled by like different organizations and classes and homework and studying for this and applying to jobs and like the list goes on. You have more time that's not filled by those things when you're not in school anymore. And, you know, we've been students for like the last 12 years. So it was something that I just was not expecting. And I can like cook and sleep and breathe. And that's just really new and nice and welcomed.
So let me stay there for a second. I think it's a great opportunity for a follow-up. I've often described the year after graduation as almost another first year, another freshman year, however you want to hear that. Can you both talk a little bit about how this was almost like, was it like starting over? Was it sort of a whole new experience that, well, what life was like for you before was good and you loved it and all that this was also just all new and you had to figure out how to do it just like you did when you came to JMU, 4 years ago?
Yeah, I'll definitely touch on two things about that. For one, at least my first year in college and then my first year out of college right now, there are a lot of things that like you think that it's going to be one way because you hear people talking about it and showing you like the highlights of things because people never want to, document the negative side of things, which is just like very human nature to do. And you think things are going to be a certain way, and then you get into it and you realize that it's not even a bad way, it's just different. And I think that the portrayal of a freshman year is we all have our idea of that, and then once you actually get into it, it's just different. Like, it's just not what you might think it is. And that's how being out of college that first year is, because you might think it's just like work all the time and you make hundreds of thousands of dollars and everything falls into line and everything's just perfect. At least that's like kind of the idea that I was getting. And like, you have a degree and this whole new world is open, which is still true, but it's a lot more calm than that. It's a lot less glamorous than that, at least for me. But still very exciting. It's just like, reality.
So you think sorry, go ahead, Molly.
I was just going to add, I felt like my freshman year of college, I had to learn a lot of new things and just learning how to do things as a person in college. And there's a lot of that your first year coming out of college, like even like emailing people. Now you are a recent college graduate, you're a professional, you're in the field. It's not something where you need to thank the person every time you email them for meeting with you, because now you're also a professional meeting with other professionals. It's just a lot of learning new things without a lot of preparation. All of a sudden you are not in college anymore, and all of a sudden you're having to learn these new things, and a lot of it is not things that you would necessarily expect to be relearning.
Well, and then I want to touch on two things you all just talked about. One, Allahjah, when you were talking, I was thinking about, no one takes a picture of the terrible meal they cooked and said, look how badly I did at my Instapot meal tonight, or look at my terrible outfit. Like, everyone waits until they've picked the best outfit possible and still say, I woke up like this. So I do think there's like that unreal thing that we've created about what it's going to be like. And then off of both of what you all said, what are those can you give me like 2 or 3 like biggest differences between your undergrad life and your grad professional life now?
Oh, absolutely. I have some already prepared. First of all, I sleep like 8 hours a night, sometimes more. I am so much healthier because of that. Sleep is so important. And, people were telling me that my whole life, and I was like, nah, y'all are just built different. I don't need sleep to do anything. And then, sleep is great. That's something I do now. I cook now. I eat more than like half a meal a day. And what else do I do? I like enjoy my hobbies. They came back, like all of my hobbies from, and I'm not trying to make college sound super depressing. If any first years are listening out there, people not in college, like there are plenty of people who sleep, cook, enjoy their hobbies. I just wasn't doing things well. So learn from me, please. Reach out if you ever need advice on how to get those things in your college life. But I like read for pleasure now, and I have time to do those things, and I really enjoy them now. So
what are these hobbies that you're now back into?
Mainly reading. I stopped reading for pleasure, and not saying that my justice study reading was not for pleasure, because I enjoyed every bit of it, but I go to Barnes & Noble and I pick out a book and I sit down and I read it, and it's a great time.
And best book you've read since graduating?
Best book I have read since graduating. I just read a book called Homeland Elegies, and it is about a completely different culture from what I'm used to, and it's one of the most enlightening things I've ever read. Highly recommend.
Okay. Interesting. I'm working my way through Cast by Isabel Wilkerson right now, and it's completely rocking my world in every way imaginable, in a good way. So if you haven't read Cast, I would recommend it. You can borrow my copy after I finish it if you want. Molly, how about you?
Adding it to the list.
2 to 3 things that have changed, how your life has been different since graduating?
I think the biggest thing for me with a different life after graduating is kind of my focus and how I set my goals. When you're in college, you almost work semester by semester, and you have the 4 years semi planned out, and you're kind of just working towards that end of the 4 years. And there's always kind of like a timestamp on it. You're working towards the end of that semester or the end of that year or the end of college. There are timestamps. And then when you graduate, there aren't those deadlines. There aren't those timestamps that you're necessarily working towards. So a lot of my big picture like decisions in life and like the things that I'm doing have really shifted to not having a deadline. And that's something that definitely was a hard thing to adjust to as someone who likes to plan, but it's a good adjustment to make. Like, for example, the books I'm reading, I just got the book, The Defining Decade. So it's about your 20s and like, there's no end date. It's a more of a broader category and making longer term goals rather than semester goals, or, maybe my goals don't have to have a timeline on them. So that kind of change in perspective for timeline was a rough adjustment because I like having deadlines, but I think that was definitely the biggest adjustment going from undergrad to after graduation.
Well, it's interesting too, because you both have sort of referenced this. And again, since I work in higher ed, I still live my life one semester at a time. But I remember, when I talk to, I'll almost call them like real adults now, and I'll say, oh, like the fall and the spring and the summer. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, and I'm used to at the end of each of those semesters, there's usually a little bit of a downtime and a break before the thing picks up. And it's been funny when I talk to, again, my real world friends who don't understand that, I'm still living that life of semesters. Right. And it's such a big change because you've done that for, most of basically your entire life so far. And that does change once you get in the real world. So let me ask you all, I know this year was different, but you just graduated. So whether that was in your basement or wherever it was where you were virtually graduating, can you try and go back to that moment and what were you feeling? What were you thinking? Like, can you give us the emotional sort of temperature for that day?
I remember this day very clearly because I drove from Virginia to Pennsylvania at 3:00 in the morning because I tried to be in Virginia as long as I could, and I knew I needed to be home that morning for graduation. So I drove home at like 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. to get home. And when I pulled into my driveway, my mom was waiting. My driveway also is half a mile long, so it's a long trip out there. My mom was waiting at the end of the driveway with a huge wooden sign that said, "Congratulations, Molly," with big JMU stuff. My mom's an artist, so it was beautiful with, the grad cap and everything. And I think that moment for me was like my graduation moment. It wasn't as much, the ceremony online or, the slideshow from the College of Arts and Letters. I think when I drove home, saw the sign, I had my grad stuff in the back of my car. I was like, I've graduated, this is what my ceremony's like. And I think it was hard because obviously we all want that moment walking across the stage, but I also felt very blessed to have family who made an effort to still have my graduation be a special day and, celebrate it, even though it wasn't what we intended it to be.
That's awesome. Allahjah?
Yeah, so I'm going to go into what I was just saying earlier about not only showing the highlights and showing the reality too. I was really, really upset that day. And I didn't think, like, I was that person from the start of senior year who was talking about the countdown to graduation every day because I thought that I was ready to like leave. And I was always like 80 days, 81 days and whatever. And then the pandemic happened and I was just like crying every day. And I was like, no, I don't want to leave. But that was a good lesson for me, don't rush things. But I was really sad that day. And I remember I was just like, didn't want to watch the commencement ceremony. I just didn't want to like do anything. So I was just upset because I just felt like I had worked so hard for 4 years for like nothing, which in hindsight, like I've reflected a lot on this and that's just not the way I feel at all. Like, I don't think it was for nothing. Like I got so much out of the 4 years. I'm still here today. Like, it definitely was not for nothing. I just didn't get to walk on the quad, which like is okay with me now. And so I was just really upset and we didn't really do anything that day. I think my mom brought me some sushi because that's my favorite meal. And I was just like, yeah, this is cool. And so my parents could tell I was kind of down. And the next day I was just like in my room feeling sorry for myself, which I do not recommend to anyone. And my mom was like, can you come out? Like, can you come out here? And I had my new JMU alumni sweatshirt on. I walk out of my room and my parents had like got all my favorite foods. They had like, I love cannolis. They got cannolis and put candles in them and like got me a bouquet of flowers. And it was just me and my immediate family, obviously, because we were in the middle of, the pandemic, as we still are. And I just like walked out in my living room and I just cried. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. It probably was even better than what my graduation day would have been. And it was just a really special moment that I'll always remember.
Those are awesome stories. It is funny when it for me at least, when it all comes down to it, it's about like what your family does and what your family means to you, and them knowing that that's what you all needed, I think is so cool. Let's go back also, and I want you to look your day of graduation self in the eye after now, we're 8 months or so past. What do you wish you could tell them that like you wish you had known then that you know now?
I would just tell myself that, and I tell myself this a lot, it's not that deep. Just, relax, roll with the punches. And this is just a very personal opinion, because I know there's some people who are still very upset about it, and those feelings are really valid. But I was really upset the day of, because I was like, I should be walking on the quad right now. And in reality, I ended up having a great moment with the people I care the most about, and it worked out really well. And I still have my degree and all of that, and I still had a really great time. So I wish I could just go back and tell myself, like, you are where you're supposed to be. Everything's happening the way it's supposed to be, and you just have to. This is life. You just got to roll with the punches sometimes.
Yeah, my advice I think is pretty similar. Mine, I was graduating in a pandemic and I had no job, no plan for a job. And that was really scary for me. And I wish I would have told myself that it's going to work out. And it really does work out. And even if it's really up in the air and you don't have a plan, you are where you're supposed to be and you're going to end up where you're supposed to be. And you just have to keep doing your best and trying your best, because that's really all you can do. Because it really is going to work out, even if it seems like everyone has a job and everyone is moving to, I don't know, Nova or wherever people go in Virginia.
Arlington.
Arlington, out of state, or don't know where that is. But, it's going to work out, and just keep trying. That's what I would tell myself.
So you touched on it, and let's talk about sort of jobs, money, that kind of stuff. So, and not throwing any shade your way, but you both graduated without a job. You both got a job. You both got jobs. I'm honestly very proud that I was part of both of those. And I remember, and I'll sort of make up for the shade part that might feel. I remember being in both of your interviews, chatting to the other people, saying, "Can we just offer them the job?" Both for Allahjah and for Molly, saying like, probably like 5-10 minutes into both interviews, I'm like, "Can we just offer?" And for Allahjah, I was told, no, we still have one more person we're supposed to interview. Molly were like, yeah, go ahead. I had to ask permission. But it was like, but you all didn't have jobs. And for some people, that might be like, oh my gosh, how did you survive? And can you talk about like that comparison, that challenge of, again, everyone else has a job making, as you said, Allahjah, over $100,000 and has a place in Arlington already, which is Northern Virginia, Molly, already has that all worked out. And they're in their own apartment with no one else there because they're making so much money. They've already bought a car and all that stuff, and whatever. Can you all talk about sort of that now in retrospect where you are? Because Molly, as we talked about in the adulting sessions, like you have a schedule for like laundry, so like you're a planner. So like, what was that like? How did you manage that? Everyone else feeling like everyone else had their life totally figured out, and you didn't have a job yet, and you didn't have all those sort of things figured out yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard, especially because I wanted to find a position in higher ed, so at a university, and universities were really hit hard in the beginning of the pandemic, and still are. But in the beginning, I had on LinkedIn like 15 jobs saved, and in a matter of a week, they were all gone. And you would look for jobs in higher ed, and the closest one would be childcare worker. And it was hard because I was trying to even just find any job, and they just weren't out there. Everyone was trying to just do what they could to stay afloat. And, everyone really was hiring internally. And so it was really hard just having no jobs show up on LinkedIn or Handshake for them to say there are 0 results for your match. I was like, cool, that's awesome. But I think I just had to keep trying, and it's going to sound weird, but kind of just get rid of your expectations. I mean, don't be looking at salary. Don't be looking at, the glorified job your first year out of college. I mean, I was looking at anything, and I was really lucky to get this job that has been more than I could have imagined. But in the process, I kind of just had to tell myself, you're going to not like every part of the next job, and that's going to be okay, but you just have to keep trying and keep looking.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. I love the part about like getting rid of your expectations, but also, knowing what you want, knowing like what your standards are, but not limiting yourself to things, because that's how things get really difficult, and you start kind of blocking opportunities for yourself. So I definitely had to remind myself of that. And honestly, like my whole pandemic mantra was just that like comparison is the thief of joy. And like if you are looking on Instagram every day, like a lot of us were, like I'm only speaking for myself, like I was, and I'm seeing all these people, oh, so and so posted on LinkedIn that they got this job, and then they got an apartment in Arlington by themselves, and then blah blah blah. Oh, and they just bought a car. Oh, and this happened. Like if you're just constantly filling your brain and your life with that every day, it's gonna naturally get upsetting, and you're going to be comparing your situation to theirs, not knowing anything about the reality of their situation, but only knowing what they show you. And I just had to remember that like everybody is living through this pandemic. Everyone, a lot of my friends had just graduated, were like going through similar struggles, and that's all we can really do is just go through it, like, and work towards whatever we want to work towards, and like keep in mind the things that you want to do and what's going to make you happy, and how you can reach those goals, but also remembering that like you're not going to have everything in place, and that's okay. Like in giving yourself that grace, I think really helped me deal with not having a job until July.
So I'm going to tell a quick Molly story that has a motto to it that I want to share with you and everyone else that's listening. And while I do that, I want you all to be thinking about is you're like giving the graduation speech. What do you want to say to your class? What's the last message you want to leave with everybody? So I'll tell this quick thing, and then I'll come to you all with that, because this is a big question. So I wanted to give you a minute. One of the things that I often advise people is that you won't get what you don't ask for. And I think that's an important thing, is that we're like, oh, I don't think I can get that, or I don't think that's for me, or whatever. Well, you'll never get it if you don't ask. And one of the things that's interesting is that there is one person who asked to meet with me about our engagement fellowship, and that was Molly. And so we had an informational interview about it. We talked about it, and we cut the job. I mean, when we were looking at the budgets, we cut the job. And Molly wanting the job and Molly coming to me about the job was one of the reasons, honestly, the main reason why I fought to fund the job, because I knew I had a really good person that wanted the job, and I knew that she would do good work. And her passion for the field of higher ed really stood out to me. And to be honest with you, if Molly had not come to me and had that informational interview, we probably would not have filled this job this year, and we would have been poorer for it, and I think she would have been too. So it's that ultimate thing for me, again, is you won't get what you don't ask for. If there's something you want, you got to go for it. You got to ask for it. I mean, I stop a little short of you got to demand it, but you got to put yourself in front of people and say, I'm the right person for this. And that ties to my last piece of advice, which is similar but different, is never say no to yourself. That's someone else's job. Someone else has to tell you, no, you're not qualified for this job. If you look at a job and it says 3 years experience and you have 2, apply for the job, because you might be the most experienced person that applies. But there are too many times that people say no to themselves. So I really want to encourage people to not say no to themselves. And again, remember that you won't get what you don't ask for. So let's go to final words. Who wants to give the first final word?
Take it
I can
away.
go.
All right, Allahjah.
I would just encourage everyone to respect your own journey, admire your own journey, romanticize your own journey. Like, it's going to be even different than what you think in your head. Like, I never even saw myself being in this fellowship position this year. I have always had different goals, like year to year, and sometimes those change, and I respect that. And I'm, it's different than everyone else's journey, and that's okay. And it's just really unique to me and my situation. I really appreciate that. And I like looking at things that way because it really like motivates me and encourages me to say yes to things and open myself up to new opportunities, which landed me in this fellowship position and led me to having an incredible year after graduation.
And Allahjah, I would just touch on that really quickly before Molly goes. People always think that there's a path they're supposed to be on and there's some magical thing out there for you and it's going to just find your way. And I've always told people that the only time you can see your path is when you look behind you. And it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be all over the place. It's going to be jumbled. But that's the beauty of the journey, is that you're on it. And I believe, and it's from a book called The Alchemist, one of my favorite books, where it talks about when you're on the right path, the universe conspires to help you. And I really do believe that. And I believe that you got to sort of, I don't love the trust the process thing. I hate that. But I do believe sort of embrace and celebrate your own journey. I think that's really great advice. Molly?
Well, I was going to say trust the process. Just kidding. Just kidding. As someone who's from Philadelphia area, trust the process is like our motto. But I really was going to say, just believe in yourself. You're more qualified than you think you are. Your experiences apply to more things than you can think of. So just believe in yourself. Don't doubt your abilities. Don't doubt your experiences. Believe that you can do what you want to do and that it's going to work out as long as you are trying. If you're trying, you're going to get to where you need to be and it's going to work out. But you just have to keep trying. You have to believe in yourself and you can't give up.
I love it. Well, this is great. Molly and Allahjah, I appreciate you being our inaugural guests on the JMU Alumni Rebound Sessions. Great advice for everyone that's out there. I hope folks will get a lot out of this and take some time to listen to it. So I appreciate you all taking the time, and we will see you around the building here pretty soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Molly.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.